Shall we start? Yeah. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you very much. Please do take your seat so we can start this session. Thank you very much for coming and welcome to our event on adaptation metrics, advancing the measurement of climate resilience. So as you know, since the adoption of the Paris Agreement, there has been a growing recognition of the need for adaptation action to be measurable, to be trackable, to be comparable and accountable across different contexts and sectors. While significant progress has been made on mitigation and how to track that, adaptation has been historically been lagging behind. But we have been advancing in the last moment, and we know that getting metrics for adaptation, indicators for adaptation is one also of the key outcomes expected for this call. So in this event, we will be exploring challenges, opportunities, paths ahead to work on the metrics for adaptation. With the rain accompanying us and the heat also accompanying us, we'll see how we can adapt to that also in the process. But to get us started, I want now to invite us, and thank you very much for being here, Your Excellency Abdallah Moqsit. He's the Secretary of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, that, as you know, is hosting this session today. So thank you very much. And I give you the floor for some opening remarks. Thank you very much. Please an applause.
Thank you very much. So I am really honored today to be with you. And also I am also honored because let me introduce in the room that we have the co-chair of Working Group 2, Bart, who he's really in charge of adaptation in IPCC. So I think you have the best person to deal with adaptation. Anything you want to adapt, he will adapt it. I am sure also he will give you the adaptation, he will give you metrics of adaptation, and he will, ensure you that he will avoid maladaptation. So this is exactly. So I want to start by also thanking colleague Karim and Riyad because they start for this initiative about EPAM, which is AAA Adaptation for Africa, and I was honored to start with them the process of EPAM, and we with 6 cycle Hussein Lee, the former chair, we were in Ben Greer, and we started the process with them. Now let me just make a sort of summary what coming from 6 cycle, because now colleagues in the Working Group 2 are just approved the outline. They will start the process as soon as possible. They will have a 1st June lead order meeting in Paris the 1st week of December. And this is the first time in the history of IPCC that there will June lead order meeting, Working Group 1, Working Group 2, and Working Group 3. So this is really with the sort of coordination is an excellent. So from 6 cycle, from the sensitivity report, we come with 3 aspects, 3 axes. First of all, the warning. The warning is that climate change is there, and the impact, negative impact are hitting all the countries in the world, developing everywhere. And sometimes I think the impact are so damaging, even, sometimes killing people and also damaging goods. So the warning is there, and the rhythm of extreme event is there also. So I think this is something which is really important. But the second axis is the hope. There is a hope. Why? Exactly because there are means to tackle climate change. Sometimes to convert climate change in climate change by introducing renewable economy, circular economy, transforming some economy, some developing country from this, carbon energy to zero carbon energy with renewable, creating job and wealth. And also there are many options which was, tested and demonstrated that is positive. But the third axis, it challenges. The warning, hope, challenges. And challenges are known in terms of finance, technology transfer, capacity building, and not only this, how to you need to convince all the individual stakeholders to commit and to change their behavior to adapt. Now I will go to the adaptation. All of you knows that the adaptation is a little bit difficult than mitigation, because mitigation we have numbers. Adaptation we have not the possibility to have numbers. This is why we were talking about metrics, how we can have metrics, how we have index of our adaptation. I think working group 2 are really doing the best, and I think the outline which was approved by the panel is really in many chapters is dealing with this. And I think I am inviting you to wait for this report from the working group 2 to have this aspect. And also we have also a sort of guideline about adaptation in this 7th cycle. This is something which really will be very good. And I am inviting you to be involved in the process, and also to be involved because selection is already achieved, but it is not too late to play a role of expert reviewer, because any expert just by self-declaration can be accepted by IPCC to receive the draft and to send the comments. And I am inviting you to participate and to contribute to this. Now, let me also say something about adaptation. Now, I said already, we should really have a clearer idea about what is adaptation, what is maladaptation, but also all of you knows that in many years ago, I think we were assessing the capacity of countries, how they can manage the crisis. It seems like a crisis management. So with the acceleration of the rhythm of extreme events, we went from crisis management to risk management. Then the rhythm of extreme events was accelerated more. And we felt need to have more years in advance to be well prepared. And this is why we introduced the knowledge risk management. Knowledge risk management. Why? This is just exactly to deal with what we can call reactive adaptation. But not only this, also planned adaptation. Because when we know in advance, we are gaining many years in advance. And for example, Morocco, if we know that our climate in 10 years, 20 years will be the same as Mexico, we have already knowledge that we can plan for something we know already, and we avoid there's bad stories and errors and so on. Now I will also continue to say, now it is the other concept is now we are dealing with vigilance. If in the past we were not dealing with vigilance, we were really working in smooth way. Now everything should be handled by vigilance. But the vigilance is based, it is like a triptych. To be vigilant, you should have the capacity to know, you should have the best information system. And what will be provided by IPCC Working Group 2 will be one element. To be vigilant, you should have the capacity to react. So it is like this crisis management. To be vigilant, you should have the capacity to prevent. And this is why out in our simulation, the assisted simulation by IPCC will be really instrumental to have this planification. The other also aspect, so we should really be vigilant. We should transform ourselves like a sort of this technical climate change commando. Because a commando is the one with the best information system, and this will come from IPCC. And to have the capacity to react, also this IPCC can help, and to have this possibility to prevent. The last thing also to know is, I think, and this will come, I'm sure, because from IPCC assessment for working group 2. Why? Because we have excellent co-chair and excellent bureau. This is something, this is already the key success is there. And also I think the process of literature is there, and I think we will have. The other thing which is really important, and I am sure it will come, is if in the past we were dealing with the abundance. For example, some cities in Europe or in Africa, they did have 100% for this drinkable water. So no problem about water, we are drinking. But with climate change, with drought, many cities in Europe and elsewhere, we have not 100% of enough water to drink. This is why you will have 50%, 60% for capacity. Then the problem, the concept of intermittence should be considered. I am sure the intermittence models should be also considered if you want to manage, to offer to the decision maker the possibility to take in real time decision to manage water resources and other resources as well. So I want to stop here because otherwise when I have the micro, I cannot stop. But thank you very much. But once again, I want to really once again to tell you that I am a witness. I am not someone's Bart is here. The adaptation is at his level, and in his pocket he has adaptation everywhere. So thank you very much.
An applause. Thank you very much for your word. I remember as why this is needed and urgent. Why do we need to be vigilant with data, with information, with capacity to react, to adapt, to prevent? And why is this important? The momentous moment that we're living, both with this new AR7 cycle that is starting and with the GGA discussion at the same time. And so we are here, and metrics are so important because this is the moment to start to work on implementation. We have heard it probably already many times, and implementation is a lot about understanding what works, what doesn't, how we are advancing, how we learn from that. So to hear more from that, I will now call to the stage Emily Beauchamp. Emily is a longtime expert in monitoring and evaluation on metrics. She is from the IISD. She's also a lead author from the IPCC, so I'm very happy to welcome her here. And she has been around this for a long while, so I think Emily can tell us a little bit, give us a little bit more framing on why it is so important at this moment to discuss specifically about metrics, where we are, and what should come. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Sorry. And just for the sake that I see we have some people standing at the back, if there are some speakers, some of the first speakers who maybe wants to come sit here, I'm sorry, I don't want to put the speakers on the front. Thank you very much. Just so that we can make space. If you want to join us. Well, now I've pulled you out, so you kind of do. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. Thank you so much. Thanks, Marco, and thanks to the great panel. Thank you for the introduction. So why is talking about indicators and metrics important? Oh, sorry, I've got to update my text, yes. So, and this is at the backdrop that indicators are being discussed right now. And indicators are key. They might seem very technical and finicky, but they point the direction towards where we need to go. But we need to not forget that indicators are parts of a system. So otherwise we can get lost into the very details of indicators. So I'm just going to take a step back and set a bit of the scene. So first, there are so many indicators, and it's good to remember that this is not a competition. So all indicators can be good depending on the context. And the important thing is that we need collaboration. We need collaborations between different institutions. We need to align indicators, and we need coherence, because without coherence, it's hard to make sense between scales. So when we think about indicators, there is never the best indicator. There's always the best analysis and the best coherence for a specific circumstance. So let's keep that in mind. And that's the panel today really reflects the diversity of indicators of measurements happening. And it really reflects the fact that sometimes we work in silo, but we still come together to be connected. And that's really important. different systems, different measurements bring different perspectives. And it's good to remember that every data point, every measurement has multiple stories. These stories, they hide often, but they also show the lived experiences of different resilient people, resilient places, and resilient systems. So it's really important that as we talk about indicators, we don't think of them just as a technical dot on our screen, but as the backstory of all the experiences and the lives that they really capture. The other thing that is why is it important to understand this multiplicity of lives? Well, we need to accelerate adaptation. The adaptation gap report has shown that we are still very much behind in terms of adaptation finance. So understanding what works for whom and why means that we will ongoingly talk about adaptation measurements, because measurements and monitoring, evaluation, and learning is not just doing the MEL of adaptation action, but it's an adaptation action in itself. So it's time to think about learning about evidence and an adaptation action in itself, not just as an aside. And finally, all these indicators, as I've mentioned in the beginning, they are part of a system. They are part of learning. And it's really key to remind ourselves that the data without the learning, it doesn't save lives. Is what we do with the data is in how you learn and how you improve and implement better that can actually do and keep us vigilant and keep us prepared. So on this note, I will pass on, and yeah, looking forward to everybody's perception on learning.
Yes, thank you very much, Emily. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these words that let us understand why it is important to work on metrics. What should we take in consideration for that? And now that we have been learning why and why is this momentum, we also want to know where we are with this. And one of the purposes of this session that we have today is to present the work that a very big group of experts have been convening exactly to discuss on these. And for to know where we are on these at this moment, I want to invite here to the stage Karim Enegay. Karim is from the AAA initiative, Adaptation of African Agriculture Initiative, and is the coordinator of the IPAM, International Platform on Adaptation Metrics Initiative, that will tell us more about what all these experts have done so far. Thank you, Karim.
Thank you. So I think we can start the PowerPoint. Well, as Marco just said, I'm from the AAA initiative in Morocco, which is hosting the secretariat of IPAM. Next, please. Well, our story began at COP22 in Morocco, where I mean, the COP22 had something special. We had a scientific committee, a Moroccan scientific committee. I mean, Abdallah and Riyad were part of it also, who was thinking on the question, the technical question. And one of the technical question was, why does adaptation get such a fair share of climate finance? And the financiers said, yeah, well, we have a problem with adaptation. We have a problem to measure it. How do we measure it? It's not easy as compared to mitigation. So we said, okay, not easy. So that means we need metrics. So we organized the first international conference on metrics at COP22 in 2016, followed by 2 more in Morocco in 2017 and 18. And in 2019, we convened a global expert workshop with 40 experts who decided, hey, there's an idea there. Why don't we put these people together, link them in a platform, and that's how International Platform on Adaptation Metric was born. It was born in the beginning to 4 organizations: the Higher Ground Foundation in the UK, the BC3 in Spain, the ASRIC based in Nigeria, and AAA Initiative in Morocco, who hosted the secretariat. And well, today we have 17 organizations. I'll let you go on our website and you will learn about all these guys. This you have a really, it's going from the very small NGO local to big things like CAB International or CIAT, etc. Next slide, please. Well, we started creating the AMI framework, Adaptation Metrics Mapping and Evaluation, which is the proposed methodology to spot, identify, and select metrics for a given project, given the objective, the contexts, I mean, environmental, social, etc., and above all, the capacities. The capacities are on the site. This methodology is also on our website, free to download. I won't go further with it. Please, next slide. We then worked in the beginning in thematic committees. We had 4 thematic committees: agriculture, water, resilient cities, and techniques and tools. Although these are very large subjects, we managed to have some concrete production. I mean, like one publication from the cities group on the current indicators and metrics that hinder effective urban climate adaptation, or IPAM experts helped to tailor the African agricultural adaptation tracking tool for the AAA initiative. This is a tool you can that you have online. You can go there, and for 10 African countries, you will find out everything about agricultural adaptation projects. I mean, beneficiaries, budgets, sponsors, projects, etc. Yeah, next slide, please. We did a lot of, and we do a lot of webinars presenting our production generally, but also the works of our members. At the moment, we have 175 experts in 45 different countries. So there's a lot to count from the histories of each and everyone. We have sometimes guest speakers. Sometimes we do capacity building presentation. Well, we're active. Next slide, please. And then, 2 years ago, we moved out of the thematic groups because it's too much to speak about water. Generally, you can speak for eternity and never have a conclusion. So we moved on to task groups with definite objectives and small duration. With these task groups, we did many submissions to UNFCCC. We did policy papers, for example, that we presented among others in Abu Dhabi. And at the moment, there's an interesting task group. I invite you to join if you want on artificial intelligence for adaptation metrics. Yes, next slide. And this year, we went one step ahead. We decided, it was actually the idea of my dear colleague Riyad, who is here, to say that IPAM should produce a kind of white paper on adaptation metrics. What are the gaps and issues of it? So 21 experts from 15 countries in 4 continents. Again, they worked on it from January to July to September. We had a review from many people, and then we have something I think unique, because I don't think you ever heard of it before. We had our paper open to critics from experts worldwide. We invited people into an international conference to criticize what we did. Also, even though it was constructive critics, still, I don't think anybody ever did that. The idea was to present this document for COP30. We failed. It's not finished because it's too long a document. We didn't have the time since that conference that took place in Rabat a month ago to have it prepared. But we have a policy paper synthesizing the ideas in only 30 pages. And this policy paper is available. And next slide. Here, just to give you a quick review. The blue dots you see are the countries where we have experts from the platform, from the membership, and the red ones are where we have the document writers. They come from Bangladesh, India, Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Ethiopia, Spain, UK, US, Canada, and Chile. My dear colleagues, Marco and Laura, for example. Now, the idea was to display a movie with the 5 of the lead authors explaining what the chapters are. We have a little issue, is the sound. The movie is there, but there is no sound. Fortunately, I thought on it yesterday and I put some subtitles. So now what I will do, I will sit here and read the subtitles for you, please. Can we start the movie? That's work for me. Yes, what can I do? It's better than to do the movie empty and silent. Yeah. The document, has been prepared by 5 groups for 5 different chapters, and 4 of them will be presented. I mean, the first one setting the stage and chapter 1 by Carl Schulz. Here he is. No sound. Good afternoon, Belém. I'm Carl Schulz at the Higher Ground Foundation and chair of the International Platform on Adaptation Metrics. Unfortunately, I can't be here, but I wanted to share a few words to support that important session and to introduce some of the thinking behind IPAM's new report. I begin by providing some context for IPAM's work. Then in place of Joel Smith, the lead author of chapter 1 on adaptation targets and global goal aligned. That goes too fast. Climate change is the test one. It's a bit too fast for me. Can you follow? Is everybody fine following like that? No, because I'm fine and not speaking. No, just too fast.
I can do that. So to go on with that, so these indicators are fundamental and methodologically inconsistent. We often count outputs, not resilience actors, not adaptive capacity. So as climate risks evolve, we too must evolve our measurement system, because stating indicators designed for a stable world cannot track progress, and one that is constantly shifting owing to climate change. So metrics need to be dynamic, revisited, recalibrated, and refined as impacts, knowledge, and institutional capacities change. Adaptation is a moving frontier, and the ways of measuring must evolve with it. So the path forward is to harmonize and modernize our metrics to capture both enhancement, that is how adaptation builds climate resilience, and advancement, how it accelerates towards global goals. So through IPAM's convenient role, this charter calls for stronger coordination, shared attribution standards, and closer bridges between non-state innovation and formal system. So we will now hand over to the next chapter lead authors. There's like 5 chapters in total. So after these, we have Shrita Dasgupta, which is the IPAM's vice chair, that will return us to the common themes of our work and present our concluding recommendation. Thank you, and I wish you well. So the next chapter is about cross-scale and cross-sector dynamics. It's really led by Dr. Samraj. So hello everyone, I'm Dr. Samraj Sahai. I'm an adaptation researcher and IPCC AIR7 author based at New Delhi, India. I'm the lead author for chapter 2 that deals with the identification and addressing the challenges related to cross-scale and cross-sector aggregation of indicators for measuring the progress on the targets of the GGA to inform GST. One of the major challenges has been the practice of top-down approaches of indicator development, as it comes with the risk of losing context specificity while aggregating the complex cross-scale and cross-sectorial interaction, such as sectorial or relational resilience, the integration of local actor, GCI. high-ending feedback loops are some of the other challenges that result in hindering the measurement of the progress of adaptation. So to address all of these issues, theory of change based skill-specific ML systems from an indicator's perspective have been proposed as a way forward that considers systems approach, takes into consideration the diverse views of stakeholders, and shows the use of series of change and learning indicators to measure the intermediate or the short-term, the medium-term, and long-term outcomes, and balances their context specificity with global comparability. So this framework uses skill-specific theory of change and indicators to measure the thematic progress and the results. The resulting scores are then used to inform the next higher level and ultimately the national adaptation plans, allowing the aggregation of the indicators to inform the progress of GGA. The proposed framework facilitates reconciling the local specificity with the global reporting requirements and ensures a credible reporting of the progress of the GGA and meaningfully informing the GSD. Thank you very much. Now, the chapter 3 from Mr. Russell Sohel is on tools and capacities for effective implementation. Hello, everyone. I'm Rashid Sohel, climate change adaptation expert based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm one of 78 global experts convened by the SMB chairs of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change to assist in developing the key indicators to track progress towards the Paris Agreement global goal on adaptation. I'm the lead author of the chapter 3 of the APM report on tools and capacity for effective implementation, which explores how we can make adaptation measures more effective, equitable, and actionable. This chapter also emphasizes that measuring climate adaptation progress requires more than metrics alone. It requires robust tools, technologies, and institutional capacity. The chapter also highlights the diverse ecosystem of solutions from traditional monitoring and evaluation frameworks like the theory of change that to advanced platforms such as Climate Adapt, Copernicus for climate data, and AI-powered predictive systems like Google's Flood Hub in Bangladesh, which achieves 94% accuracy in flood forecasting. The chapter also discussed blockchain application to ensure transparency and adaptation. Financing using IoT and remote sensing tools also discussed are in this chapter, but despite these advances, we identify some persisting challenges that undermine the poor data quality and lack of standardized indicator and financial constraints to address these issues. So the chapter offers several recommendations. In conclusion, we can say that in addition to robust tool technologies and institutional capacities, collaboration among government and private sector actors and communities is essential to make adaptation metrics reliable, inclusive, and impactful for global resilience goal. Thank you very much. Now we go to the fourth chapter. The fourth chapter, which is on tools and capacity for effective implementation. And this is from Mr. Oman Sidhu, who was a professor of water resource engineering at the University of Ottawa and lead author of the chapter 5 of the report. Before he begins, I would like to acknowledge my many co-authors, and especially Dr. Marco Villi. Sorry, I'm just acknowledging myself. Our chapter explores how to make global adaptation metrics more meaningful and more actionable. Around the world, adaptation efforts are growing fast, but our ability to measure real progress is still lagging behind. Too often, we track inputs and outputs, money spent, and projects completed without capturing whether people, ecosystems, and economies are truly more resilient. To address this, we propose in our chapter guiding principles for robust adaptation metrics. First, transparency. Second, coherence. Third, consistency. Fourth, realism. Fifth, sensitivity to context. And finally, the ability to aggregate results across scales. Together, these principles ensure that metrics are globally comparable, yet, as I said before, locally relevant. We also introduced a theory of change approach that was mentioned by Samraj before for local action to with national and global outcomes. The framework connects long-term processes to long-term impacts and emphasizes learning, feedback, adaptation over time. And it helps countries trace how today's action leads to tomorrow's resilience. Ultimately, effective adaptation is not just about doing more, it's about measuring better. Because to accelerate adaptation, we must also advance how we measure it, ensuring that every action will be real, lasting resilience. Thanks for listening. And now to conclude, we just go with the synthesis of final recommendation for Dr. Sujata Das Gupta, which is also the co-chair of the IPAM. Hello, everybody. My name is Sujata Das Gupta. I'm a climate change adaptation and policy expert working at Gabi, and I'm currently the vice chair of IPAM. It's an absolute honor to join you today as we reflect on how to bring greater rigor, consistency, and visibility to climate adaptation, making every country's progress more comparable, credible, and actionable. At IPAM, based on the findings of the reports that our esteemed authors have presented so far, we have distilled our insights into 6 core recommendations, which are: first, there is a need to adopt integrated, locally grounded approaches that connect sectors and skills. Second, we need to co-design metrics with local and indigenous partners, ensuring transparency, participation, and accountability. We also need to build national and global capacity through a shared adaptation metrics hub, for instance. Fourth, we need to close the data gaps using structural frameworks such as the MERI framework and tools such as AI, GIS, and blockchain technologies. We then need to align metrics with policy and finance so that measurable resilience directly drives investment. And finally, we need to embed a continuous learning process because our indicators must also evolve with the changing climate. We have made significant progress in indicators for the global goal and adaptation. But the next challenge is really to make those indicators truly operational on the ground between now and the next global stocktake and beyond. The opportunity for us here is extraordinary, and us at IPAM extend a warm and hearty invitation to the world to join us at COP30 for the presentation of the metrics in this moment. I wish everybody a very successful COP and look forward for the positive outcomes. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everybody, for bearing with us with this adaptive way to get into our video. I hope you're still with us at this moment.
Well, first, thank you, because he managed something I couldn't have. This video will be uploaded without subtitles, but with sound to our website, so you can get this will be blended for 1 minute, so everybody can have a chance to note how to download the policy paper. And I just want to remind you that anyone is welcome to join IPAM. I mean, as long as you have a proven track of interest in adaptation metrics, of course. We're not looking for people. We're not searching people. People are coming and they're welcome. If you are part of IPAM, video. If you are part of IPAM, you will get a lot of information about what we are doing. You will have the chance, but not the obligation of participating in our task groups. That's as an individual member. If you want to be an institutional member, the idea is that we are no legal entity. IPAM doesn't exist as a legal entity. I mean, AAA initiative is hosting the secretariat and is a legal entity. But other than that, we have 16 institutions worldwide that have the right to represent us, either geographically or thematically, and have also the possibility to manage monies if we mobilize funds, because we as IPAM itself can't do it. So now I pass on to the rest of the program, and I welcome you.
Thank you very much, Karim, and applause to IPAM for all the presentation and all the work. I can assure you there's been a very long work, and by this bearing its fruit. Now, for the next section of our session, I want to invite a panel of esteemed guests that we have here to further discuss on this. I will call you here to the chairs. In order, first of all, Mr. Bart van der Hulk is the Scientific Director of Delta Risk and IPCC Working Group to co-chair. As I said before, thank you very much, Bart, for joining us. Following, we have Stefan Hallegat. Please, Stefan, join us. He's the World Bank's Chief Climate Economist. Thank you very much for joining our panel. We then have Julia Wolf, Deputy Team Lead for the Climate Change Team of the FAO. We have then Laura Ramajo, a researcher with the Center for Climate and Resilient Research, Race to Resilience Technical Secretariat, and also IPAM author. Thank you very much. We then have Christoph Jungfleisch, General Director of the YAPU Solution and the Scale for Resilience Initiative. Thank you very much for joining us. And finally, we need Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you very much, Karim. Albert Salamanca, who's a Senior Research Fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute and also coordinator of the Adaptation Research Alliance, ARA. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. And now, like starting from the reflection that we had, we want to go through your different perspective that you can give us in this discussion about metrics. And we have a very diverse panel, so I'm pretty sure that the perspective here will be very, very interesting and complementary one with the other. So we will start with our host here. So Bart, thank you very much for being here. So as you know, IPCC, and also as has been explained by the secretary before, is also going to tackle in some way adaptation metrics as part of the new Era 7 cycle. And the dedicated workshop is actually upcoming next year. What inputs do you expect from these, from which actors, and who do you think is expected to have the largest benefit from the assessment that is coming out? Thank you very much, Bart.
Yes, thank you, Marco. It's quite a challenge to already beat the presentation we already had, because it was also quite a few lead authors in IPAM that are also going to be lead authors in the IPCC. So you have a good social connection already. I guess, yeah, we have, of course, a couple of chapters to produce and events to produce. Let me briefly talk about that, but not too long, because tomorrow we have a side event at 11:30 in one of the side event rooms, and I will elaborate a bit more on the work program and the linkages to GGA and also on the expert meeting. But we did deliberately position an expert meeting on adaptation and impact metrics and indicators to take place in March 2026. To deliberately put after this week's COP to make an analysis what actually is coming out of COP, what is actually maybe the negotiation result, and what does that imply for the assessment that we are about to produce. And of course, you're also aware of the technical guideline of impact and adaptation. That is of course going to be truly fed with that metrics discussion. Let me first think about what are the dilemmas where we're in and we need to come about with in this, and then maybe then also what the participants in these processes need to bring to the table. But I think Emily made it very clear. Is she still here, or she has to leave? Oh, she had to go. But she made it clear these metrics and indicators are part of a system. And although IPCC, of course, is a scientific agency to produce scientific information, we are an intergovernmental panel, which means we cannot just rely on the science. We have to deal with the fact that this is entering a political landscape. And yeah, if you like it or not, but I think we have to realize that every system of metrics and indicators is also evaluated in terms of, yeah, what's in it for me? What is the potential benefit for me to be able to, say, report my status, but also what is the potential barrier for me in order to get, for instance, finance, or to be compared to a country that is better off than we are. And I would like to find a way where the assessment and the TGIA, the technical guideline, and maybe the expert meeting can give us a bit of a pathway forward to almost paradoxically depoliticize the discussion on metrics and indicators in order to make it usable in the political arena. Because now, also, if we follow in the margins the GGA outcome, there's so much political entity, there's so much different weights put on the indicator that all the experts for GGA have put together. The agreement is still not there. I don't know where we will land, but it is a very tedious process to agree on something that can be used as a standard. We were at Substa last June, where I also presented the program, and again the discussion that came after the presentation was, yeah, maybe we should, like this task force on inventories, also think of a task force of adaptation, right? That was a discussion that is also alive. I'm not sure how broad it is, but that is of course a much more difficult thing to realize than just counting CO2 measurement molecules, so to say, and I'm not going to make any statement on the task force, but it's just to illustrate how deeply intertwined this whole stuff is with decisions on where to invest first, what to prioritize. That is the thought. So I really hope that our products can be helpful in the real world of tough decision making in prioritization. And indeed, the data itself don't save lives. You have to learn from it. So the technical guideline outline is really designed as a product that should feed in, say, the routine adaptation cycle. It should help particularly least developed countries or countries needing assistance with developing this adaptation process to know how that is being done and being standardized. But that is I guess the main purpose. But again, try to depoliticize in order to make it better usable in the political process. And I'm really keen to listen to you about it. What I expect to bring from the experts is there is so much evidence is there, and there's so much tooling, and I really like the IPAM initiative to make a bigger inventory and also to point at where the unexploited tools should be used about. But I will keep on asking to these experts, figure yourself in a position where there's a true societal interest to defend. What is it that you would like to evaluate quantitatively and objectively? And it is not always fortunate to be able to be compared to another situation. That is the political reality that we see. And so I'm really struggling with this way how we handle inconvenient truth, so to say. That is what it is, what we have to do to provide a baseline, a standard where I hope everybody is going to agree with what this TGIA is going to produce. That is, of course, the purpose of IPCC. That is also the purpose of the summary for policymakers' approval. Everybody has to agree with what comes out of that. And listening to the discussions at the GGA, that is a way to go. And I hope we can rationalize this process a bit.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much, Bart. I'm just too near this. Just move here. Thank you very much, Bart, for your words. I think it's very important that to think the indicator need to be a practical exercise. They need to be useful for who really needs to use them, because otherwise, what's the point? And for that, we really need something that can be agreed upon, not just a political discussion and debate, but really something that can become a source of consensus to go on. And to go on with that, and thank you very much also for you making the guidance, we move now to the World Bank, Stefan. So as you know, the World Bank has a long-standing experience also with working with metrics, with indicators, with also inconvenient truths sometimes, as said before, and also connecting the points of climate change with vulnerability, with poverty, with development in many ways. And I know you in particular have championed the need to make this work together. So Stefan, what can you tell us a little bit about what has been done in this field? What are the lessons learned in all the work you've been championing so far, and where we are? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here, and it's really good to see this work advancing from a few years ago when we had the first discussion. It's really great to see. One point on the initiative, I think this is a domain where a lot of people are working. We all have an incentive to do our own thing, and for the external people, it's extremely confusing. So I think working on just bringing things together is really really useful. We're also an evidence-based organization, so we also hope to be able to use data and hard truth to just advance the topic. I want to just try to cover three issues, right? First, I'll talk a bit about adaptation as a priority. Second, I'll talk about our work on indicators and outcomes. And finally, one point which I find really important is our intense focus on replicability. and identification of best practices that we can replicate. So on adaptation, you might or might not know that we're doing about $10 billion per year in project with adaptation benefits. So we're the biggest financier of adaptation. And the selection of those projects, of course, is based on country demand. But we are doing what we call country climate and development reports, which are systematic diagnostics that we're doing in all countries. So we have done 93 countries in 4 years. So I invite you to have a look at whatever country you're interested in to see what we have been doing. In those reports, what we look at is not just climate, they are development reports. And so the question we're asking is, how can countries successfully develop in spite of climate change? But what we're looking is really the development priorities and how they are threatened by climate impacts, how they can be combined with countries' climate objectives, and how they can benefit of all of the progress in green technology and new technologies. In those reports, you'll find systematically a risk assessment, identifying what are the key threats, not only for the country now, but also for the country development priorities. And you'll find an identification of the readiness and priorities for action. For the readiness, we have what we call an adaptation and resilience readiness assessment. Won't go into the details, but we have 6 pillars. It's about 150 different dimensions. Our goal is not to rank countries. We don't care. It's not to allocate resources because we have other rules to allocate resources. It's really to identify in each country, what are the low-hanging fruits. In some countries, the big lag might be on land use management. In other countries, it might be on social protection. Sometimes it's health. What we want to identify are lagging areas on which we can focus. But we don't care about comparability across countries. This is really not the goal of the exercise, and it makes things much, much easier. So based on those identifications, we talk with countries. We do what we call a country partnership framework, which is among those priorities that we identify what the country wants to do. And then we support that with different forms of financing, with right now a lot of efforts to mobilize private sector investors into this, and with a key focus on jobs. So we have a big focus on jobs now, in part because of the politics, because jobs is something that everybody agrees is a good objective. So again, to try to avoid a little bit the politics, having objectives that are less controversial is something useful. Let me move now on the measurement. We also have made a big push on measurements and outcomes, in part because of the problems we had on climate finance, because we were measuring how much we invested, and we got a lot of questions about whether this gets results. And so part of that work was to create a completely new corporate scorecard. So we used to have for the whole World Bank Group a set of 150 objectives. It's just too many. You cannot pilot an organization with 150 goals. You cannot track progress with 150 goals. So we simplified it to 22 indicators, still more than the boss wanted, but better than 150. And in those indicators, we have different categories. One category are what we call the vision indicators. This is what we really want to achieve. And one of them is a count of the number of people living at high risk. Two things on that. First, we are working with a head count, in part because I can explain that to anyone. I mean, we used a lot the head count of people living in extreme poverty. Very simple to explain, very simple to track over time. So we're trying to replicate that just because it's much simpler than using a very complicated metric. Second thing, when you measure risk and vulnerability to climate change, everybody is vulnerable to some extent. So we could have had like 1% at high risk or 7 billion people at high risk. Where you put the threshold is a political choice. And we made the political choice to put the bar very, very high in the sense that we wanted to identify people who really are extremely vulnerable and exposed to extreme risk. And so what we're doing is we're combining exposure data on climate impacts with vulnerability dimensions, combining income, education, access to healthcare, access to energy, access to improved water and sanitation, and so on. And we decided to really only focus on an extreme definition of risk. Even with that extreme definition, that was a shock to me. We have 1.2 billion people at high risk on the planet. So about 20% of the population. So super high number. What we will be doing is to track this number over time to see if we're making progress or not. In the last 10 years, this number has been declining a lot because of the progress of development. So more people have access to water and energy and so on. So we're making progress, but we still have big pockets of risk, especially in Africa. So that's the vision. And then we have outcomes to measure our impact. It's completely different because the vision indicator is driven by whatever's going on in the world. We have other indicators to measure our impact. And again, we're using a head count. We're counting the number of people with enhanced resilience thanks to World Bank projects. So again, so that it's very easy to communicate. And again, we have the problem of where do we put the threshold? And just to give you an example, you can do in a village a flood management project. You're completely transforming the life of, let's say, 10,000 people. In the next country, you're improving the fiscal system to make it more resilient to big disasters. Of course, the whole country benefits. If you do it in a big country, you might have hundreds of millions of people benefiting, but they benefit just a little bit. And so aggregating the 10,000 people with a completely transformed lives and the maybe 120 million people with a little bit of an improvement create some aggregation problems that, to be frank, we haven't completely solved. So what we're doing is we're putting a threshold and we're aggregating. We understand the limit of that, but communication was a very critical point for us. I want to be able to explain that to just anyone, and that was a priority in how we were doing that. And sorry, I'm a little bit long, but I'm getting to my last point on replicability. We feel like we have spent a lot of time doing modeling and analytics to make recommendation. I think we have to move to a situation where we are more like tracking what countries are doing, measuring the impact, identifying what works, and replicating. And so right now we're doing a lot of case studies. I have a lot of questions for my IPCC friends about how we make that information useful to you. But what we're doing is having case studies in some sectors, some regions to tackle different hazards. And the key is really to get metrics of outcomes for all of these projects so that we can go in, I don't know, in the Philippines and say, hey, in Turkey, they have been doing this thing. This is the result. If you want, we can ship you to meet those people and they will explain to you how to do it and try to replicate that way. When it's with our project, we have what we call a resilience rating system that measures how much we have taken into account risk and resilience in the design of projects. So that's another dimension of what we're looking at. But basically here, the goal is really identification of best practices and moving from recommendation based on modeling to recommendation based on experience with measurable results. So just to conclude, we have those different aspects. It's extremely complicated because people are talking about resilience indicators or adaptation indicators and so on, but we don't need one. There are many things that we want to do. We measure country, we measure project, we measure different things. So to me, the key thing is to simplify and to aggregate what we are all doing into something that is easier to use, especially by non-experts in the private sector. And so if EPAM can help with that, we're very happy to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry again. Thank you very much. So practicality, again, usability, and for that needs to be simple, needs to be understandable. Thank you very much for your point. We'll now pass to see what happens in one specific sector. We'll go to the agri-food sector. You were talking about the people more vulnerable. We know that very often the people that live in rural areas, the agri-food systems, they tend to be the people that are at the front line many times. And also it's one context in which is also very particularly complex to get data, to get information, to get that. So again, in the case of FAO, what is your experience on that? And what can you think also maybe the forms of collaboration with other people on the panel? I will be signaling to everybody when we are like at 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. And thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I have to say we're pretty nervous what's happening in the negotiation room at the moment. And it's really, let me comment the organizers of this meeting, because I think it's really important to dialogue about it. And what I hear also from my other colleagues here is how important it is to think about both, not like a scientific approach to building a system, but then something which is practical and implementable to countries. And I think that's kind of in terms of the main direction forward. So why am I particularly nervous? I'm one of the 78 experts, and I saw two of the 78 experts were contributing to the chapter. So it's good to see how this new kind of family is getting together in many different ways. So why is it so important to have agriculture as part of this package? Is because in the UNFC negotiation, agriculture has a separate negotiation stream, but the GGA is one new opportunity, let's say, to really think through the different thematic areas in terms of really making agriculture part of a societal solution and take it out of the agriculture box into like an environment livelihood box, which has socioeconomic dimensions. So that's why it's so key to have that. And we managed with the group, we had like the task throughout 2 years to manage from 1,801 indicators. We had to shrink them to core indicators, which had sub-indicators, and now we have 10 indicators in the food and agriculture set, let's say, which are not perfect, but which try to really look at different dimensions from food production to access and food security dimensions and supply. And that's also one of the kind of key messages I'd like to share. As FAO, we work with countries, and we know that there's a lot of adaptation indicators that are looking at the productivity. They're not looking at the food chain or the access and food security questions. So that's something that may need to be addressed over time. One of the key problems now in the negotiation room is that because of the shortness and the complication of the task, and I'm glad the World Bank is also confessing how difficult it is to measure progress, is really data availability. So the data, the indicators proposed, they're not fit for purpose yet. Some are, right? But you have the challenge of the climate association, or like, and you can say attribution, but that's even more difficult, no? And that's also something parties are really concerned, because once the set of indicators hopefully will be adopted, there's a lot of work which includes a multiple array of that's universities, it's experts, it's working with IPC, it's picking up the guidance from your report, which is coming out, because there need to be a clear alignment. We cannot have like GGA set of indicators and then the IPC comes out with other indicators. So it's really important, a crucial timing issue here to make everything congruent, and that in the end you have a set of indicators that don't mean an additional burden for countries, right? So we live in this imperfect situation now, but what is really important for this COP is that the indicator set as such hopefully will be agreed in some way, or there will be some roadmap on the way forward, because the mandate of the technical experts, I don't know if everybody knows that, we were out of job in September. There was the final workshop in October, and now it's entirely up to the parties, which is what this process wants. But I think it's really important not to get like you have this famous sentence of the perfection is the enemy of progress. So it's really important that now at this COP there is a consensus on the way forward. There are new mandates given to whoever should be part of that, but that we move ahead as a society, as a community, and that also institutions and partnerships like this one, it's really then working together and take it to the national level, but also very particularly to the local level. So let's not forget the subnational importance of adaptation and the local actors who also need to be part of the progress. And maybe I keep it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia, for your very strong, very clear, and right to the point remarks. And this is the right moment. We are in a negotiation. All the experts have been trying to make the best that they can. IPOM had 9 members that were part of this group of experts, and they have been part of the process so far. But as you said, like this in the moment is in the hands of the negotiator. We hope We sincerely hope here in this moment that we can have the best outcome possible, but we also know that metrics and the work will be just beginning after this, because then implementation come, and implementation needs to get to all the levels, to all the actors, because adaptation is a whole of society approach necessarily. For that, we will now pass to the next person in the panel, that is Laura Ramajo. Laura, as I said before, apart from being a researcher, scientist, and also a PAM member, she's also part of the Race for Resilience, that from the work of the Climate Champion has also been working on for several years now to work on metrics, in this case, for the work that all the non-state actors are providing to advance in adaptation. And so, Laura, what can you tell us about all these experience and how it complements what you said before?
Thank you, Marco. Yeah, this year, for first time, the campaign is presenting implementation data. And today, this is a big milestone for the COP30, and we are presenting how the non-state actor actions are already made more than 400 million people more resilient. They help to protect millions and millions of hectares of ecosystem, and also mobilize and deploy more than $4 billion dollars in adaptation. In addition, also our partners in the campaign have been working and improve the gaps and the gaps in governance, in finance, in partnership, in collaboration, and this enable condition that make system more resilient. This has not been too easy. This last 4 years has been coping with a lot of gaps and a lot of also challenge regarding on how the different partners of the campaign are reporting and tracking the advance in adaptation and resilience. For example, I'm going to take only to talk about 4 points, and Christoph is going to confirm this, right? Because he's part of the campaign. And we realized that metric is not only a methodological issue. It was not only a technical exercise. It's not, but it was a community building and a coordination exercise with the different partners, where we have the possibility to build this framework that we are using to provide information about how many people are more resilient after the action are implemented. And we have the possibility to improve the framework, and also to align with the different priorities and the context of the different partners. Also, with the different index that we are applying in this framework, we have the possibility to know how they are, which area they are in the action, they are impacting with the action. So we have these 7 resilient attributes that give us information about what is the depth of the action, and where we have to put attention, because these areas are not really developed with the action. Also, in the process of collecting information from the partner, we realized that the different partners are coping with difficulties to track the advance, and also they have a lot of burdens to provide information to the campaign. So these 2 years have been working very hard with the partners in order to provide new tools to collect this information, and also provide capacity building session in order to improve the capacity of the partners reporting. So I think it was good, right, Christoph? Yeah. So it was working. And finally, we have in the Race to Resilience, we have the Race to Resilience solution story, and this is relevating the role of the storytelling. And these stories is translating the metrics in realities, and with more than 70 solution stories providing information in more than 50 countries, are inspiring the different stakeholders and also practitioners, and also is reinforcing the quantitative reporting.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this report. As Laura was saying, all this work that has been done thanks to the collaboration between the CR2 as Technical Secretariat of the Race to Resilience and all the global actors, both the partners and the experts. have made possible to arrive this year for the first time a launch of the first progress of implementation of the Race to Resilience that shows 437 million people made by resilient. This was launched yesterday. You can also find that in the page of the Race to Resilience. But since we want to see also how these applies, we want some of the other voices that also took part of that. We'll now pass it to Christoph Youngfleisch. As I said before, he is from Yap Solution, which is also one of the key partners of the Scale for Resilience, one of the initiatives that are part of the Race for Resilience. And it is very important because as also with the case of Stefan Allegat, that was telling us about all the work that the World Bank is doing to try to bridge the finance gap, to close the finance gap for adaptation. This is made by international body, but it's also very importantly made by non-state actors. And it is made in many ways, exactly as Stefan was saying, to try and very pragmatically get to how do we define where to prioritize in actions that can be useful. So Christopher, can we tell us about this?
Yes, thank you very much. As Marco and Laura already indicated, we are working with financial service providers in developing countries, mostly Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa. And we tried to bring them up to speed so that they can report to the World Bank or to the FAO programs. So we adjust to the respective programs, and we have obviously everything is geospatially mapped. We know what investments are being done. We know how big the size of the assets are that are being addressed. So, for example, how big is the plot of a smallholder farmer? And this is what brings me to the main challenge. Our primary subject, our primary beneficiary or client are smallholder farmers, micro enterprises, are rural households. So we need to think of how they are thinking. And there's basically one key metric they are looking at, and that's return on investment. That's internal rate of return. So it's good that we have taxonomies, operational taxonomies. We have over 650 solutions identified for these customer groups. But where we are, for example, really struggling because we need large data volumes is to identify the outcome indicators or metrics. When it comes to how successful are specific interventions in very diverse contexts. So a smallholder farmer with a cocoa or coffee production is not the same in Ivory Coast than in Colombia, than in Guatemala. So we need to have these solutions available. We test what solutions are available in the markets, and then we need to look at how are these performing. So one of our major parts is right now looking at these outcome indicators and making these a public good available. Starting this right now with some support of the Gates Foundation in Nigeria and Kenya, but doing this then and rolling this out across our operations in all the 3 continents where we are active. Again, where we are struggling, and I'm focusing more on the struggling part before I at least mention the opportunity part, is to incentivize these final beneficiaries. So while we can map and we have partners in the Scale for Resilience initiative, they have disbursed over $770 million US dollars for adaptation and resilience investments. And just to point it out, that's all private investment. It's all private risk of the smallholder farmers, of the vulnerable households. And still, we want to get to 10 times of this or 20 times of this, but we need to provide the stories that show this is why it is working for you, and this is how it is working, and this is what your concrete benefits are in a very short term. So even with longer term value chains, for example, the expectation is that we have a monetary benefit of these adaptation investments in the short term. It should directly support education in the household or a better living standard in the household. So maybe based on these metrics and the metrics and the indicators we are working with, are really the foundation of everything we are doing. This is how we try to guide our partners, financial service providers, in promoting specific solutions, promoting the mindset that is behind that. And I think the big opportunity is also, obviously, we are depending on the negotiations, we are depending on the big players present also here, we are depending on the country decisions. But the opportunity is that adaptation is already happening and that we can promote this even further if we understand the dynamics behind these interventions. So I hope that helps. Marco.
Christophe, an applause to Christophe. And so there is also this dimension. So metrics is not, there is a technical element in metrics, but there's also a storytelling element in metrics. Because one thing that we be hearing from all of this is that metrics need to be a pragmatical tool. And that means connecting solution with resources to get this solution, with the story, with the selection, and with the people that need it. And so maybe like to close now, I would love to pass it to Albert, representing the Adaptation Research Alliance, another very important partner of the Race to Resilience, and also an organization that gets together so many research organizations that work on these and trying to make sure that adaptation, that the evidence and that the stories get here so that we can have it to advance on that. To you.
Thanks a lot, Marco, for the introduction. So as Marco mentioned, I represent the Adaptation Research Alliance, whose mission is to accelerate and scale investment in action-oriented adaptation research. So that's the perspective I'm coming from, perspective of communities on the ground. So to summarize the excellent conversation that we have, I think maybe I'll do that in terms of a few questions that I'd like to raise, given that the indicators RDR right now is in the process of being negotiated, which makes me question actually, how many of us have seen the indicators? Quite a number of us. So that means I presume that we're all quite familiar with each of them, or maybe what they represent. So perhaps also just building on what Bart mentioned with regards to an inconvenient truth is that the inconvenient but obvious truth is that these indicators are product of obviously of experts, and some of them, those experts are represented here. But adaptation is local. Adaptation is about experiences of communities on the ground. So who could be the better experts with regards to adaptations and those experiences, but the communities on the ground? So again, we have indicators that are being produced by experts, which actually beg the questions. Are those indicators of adaptation or indicators of coping? Because if you have these conversations actually on the ground, the first question that communities are going to ask you is that, what is adaptation? So they themselves are not actually aware what we mean by adaptation. And even experts also are not quite sure what is the definition to use with regards to adaptation. Is it AR5 definition or AR6 definition? So there's a lot of conceptual issues with regards to adaptations that we need to clarify. So the first question I'd like to ask is that, who are the metrics for? Obviously, it is for the bureaucrat, for the researchers, but are these for the communities who need to make decisions every day? Because if the question would be for communities, then perhaps those indicators would be totally different, as what Christophe already mentioned. And is it also, what is the reason we have these indicators? Is it just for reporting, or is it because for accountability? I assume the reason that those indicators are developed in the first place because we want to ensure accountability, right? And then the other question I'd like to ask is that, who needs to learn from the outcomes of this matrix? So there are different indicators, there are different measures. Who is actually learning? So if communities on the ground are still grappling with the issue, whether they're adapting or whether they're coping, then who needs to learn from the insights from these indicators? And then maybe the final question that I would like to ask is that, how should we address this potential disconnect with regards to measures and metrics that are being defined by experts at a higher level with regards to the priorities of communities on the ground? Because I think somehow we should be able to address that, because that's the reason, in fact, that we have all of this conversation, right? Because there are real needs on the ground. But at the moment, we don't know yet what would come out of the negotiations, but obviously there will be a set of indicators that parties would have to report to. How are those indicators representing realities and aspirations of communities on the ground? I think that's also a broader issue that we need to have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Albert, and thank you very much again, everybody, because I think all of these makes us reflect on this need for connection and to go over the disconnect from the connection from the metrics to the solution, to the finance, to the people that need it, and also from the different metrics frameworks, because replicating and having more and more will help us. What help us is clarity in stories. And so now we are arriving to the closing on the panel. So I just want to close to thank all of our speakers. And just to wrap up, I will ask Riyad from the AAA initiative to just give us some closing remark getting us, but just not but after Riyad. Okay, so Riyad, I will ask you for just.
Thank you, Marco. I wrote my speech, so that I'm sure I don't forget anything from the ideas we want to share with you. So as we are about to close this event, I want to remind that 9 years ago at COP22 in Marrakesh, there was a reality at the time that only 16% of the funds were allocated to adaptation at that time. It's not better now at 26% approximately, but it's still bad. But at that time, the reason why it was one of the reasons why it was is very few to adaptation is what we didn't have a matrix to measure adaptation and to discuss with the defenders and the international organization. So today's discussion have confirmed that what IPAM's analysis reveals. The 2025 UNEP adaptation gap reports show that developing countries need more than $300 billion per year for adaptation by 2035. So the current international public finance flows were just 26 billion 2 years ago, which means that the needs are 12 to 14 times greater than current flows. The policy paper launched today doesn't just diagnose problems, it provides a roadmap with clear timelines and responsibilities. It offers 6 guiding principles for robust indicators and 6 priority recommendations. That was you heard from the videos. From establishing an international adaptation metrics hub to linking metrics directly with finance flows. So as the African Agriculture Adaptation Initiative and Secretariat of IPAM, we understand that adaptation is not abstract for Africa's smallholder farmers, for rural communities across the continent, and globally, adaptation metrics determine whether climate finance reaches those building a drought resilience, whether early warning system to protect vulnerable population, whether climate smart agriculture can transform livelihoods. So the AA initiative commits to continuing supporting IPAM, of course, and facilitating the knowledge exchange and capacity building that makes robust adaptation measurements possible. So we are grateful to all the panelists, the moderator Marco, of course, we are grateful to the IPCC, WMO, and MERI Foundation for hosting these events. We are grateful to all the contributors to the policy paper, and we would like to thank you all. Obrigado, shukran, and thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This closes the panel. So thank you very much to all our speakers, to all the panelists for a very important and very interesting contribution. There is another panel just upcoming, so we will need to go through that, but I will just ask our panelists one picture before we leave. Thank you very much. And get it like with this very nice thing. Yes, well, yeah. And thank you very much for your audience to bear with us.
Marco, sos un genio, te felicito. En vez de científico podrías hacer otra cosa.
También hacemos
¿Le damos este o le damos el otro? Porque este es el que estamos usando.
Sí, está bien, tiene batería.
¿Cómo?
Tiene batería, está bien.
¿Quieres que pruebe?
Sí.
Aló, uy, aló. Está un poco como rasposo. Do you speak? Sorry. Es que está sonando como. ¿Y no hay forma de arreglarlo? Es que suena como si fuera como una bolsa de basura. Me caché como un papel, como una bolsa. Ahí está un poco mejor, ¿no? Sí, pero yo hablo fuerte. Yo soy el moderador. Sí. Sí. Yo creo que todo está bien. Sí, y si alguien habla muy bajo, lo podemos. Sí, cerquita el micrófono. Ok. Ah, perfecto. Yo creo que ahí está bien. Voy a hablar, igual voy a bajar un poco el volumen para que se. Sí. Es que también es para ponerle entusiasmo. ¿Viste? Hola. Hello. Please. Should we put another chair for someone? Should we put another chair? Or where should I sit? Here? Bueno, compañero. Bueno, esto.